We've been talking a lot about things which compromise our quality of life recently. How certain habits or stimuli are taking us too far from our ideal natural environment, overstimulating our senses and satisfying a lot of our needs. It is obvious that we are not able to escape these stimuli completely. Therefore, it is needed to find a way of living with these so that they do not compromise your experience. The dose makes the poison. I showed you in my last video that, for example, going to a sports event is also largely consistent of overstimulation, but doing it every once in a while can actually benefit you. It gives you something to look forward to and offers a social experience in a large scale. It can be quite a huge resource for you to have these events every once in a while, but as soon as something becomes an addiction, it will compromise your everyday experience, which is the definition of an addiction. When a certain addictive object, be it a substance or a behavior, is continuously used even though there are already negative side effects, it can be classified as an addiction. So a lot of stimuli nowadays can be seen as having addictive properties. Addiction, in whatever form, is strongly upheld or even caused by the fact that these unhealthy addictive objects serve a role in one's life. It is being used to satisfy our needs. Every human has needs. Not everyone might have the same or as many as others. But even though some might for some reason want to claim that they are not controlled by their needs, it is fair to assume that everyone has some sort of motivating factors guiding their short to mid-term behavior. We can all probably envision quite good examples of people obviously acting out their needs, be it wanting to be accepted or connecting with others or even searching for love. There's an ideal way of developing mechanisms to satisfy your needs. Some can be internalized and internally activated if needed, like the warm and safe basis a parent can give their child to explore the world from. Nowadays, you probably don't need to go back to your parents anymore just because you encountered a situation which is new and scary. Then there are social needs, which are only satisfied through healthy interactions with other people. As said, people might differ, but I would imagine that most people have some sort of intrinsic interest in being accepted and appreciated by their social environment. The problem is that our parents might not have been perfectly programmed robots who were able to create and uphold an ideal environment for the years needed where everything was perfectly fitted to develop every functional way of satisfying your needs at the right time. Oftentimes quite the opposite. I'm going a little bit off topic here, but due to the lack of awareness in regard to mental illness, we are basically the first generation to have a widespread reflection on our mental well-being. So most likely, there are certain topics or behaviors in your grandparents which were caused by their parents and have caused how your parents were able to influence you. If you remember, just 80 years ago there was a war affecting the entire world, some parts more than others. But you can probably imagine how much these circumstances influence the development of your ancestry, even up to you. So a lot of people end up with some sort of lag in terms of being able to satisfy all of their needs. This can lead to a higher vulnerability for dysfunctional ways of satisfying their needs. When the healthy natural way of satisfaction cannot be achieved, there is room to develop habits which might be able to satisfy these needs, but are not sustainable in doing so. For example, someone who grew up and never made the experience of having a close connection to others. His parents were not available for different reasons, might be due to work, drug abuse, or just a general disinterest in their child. This person now is in school and has problems connecting to his peers in a meaningful way. One day, he manages to bond with some classmates over the fact that they all want to try out smoking. When meeting up before school and trying it out, he finally experiences a connection to other people. Trying out becomes a habit and they find themselves meeting up for a smoke every day before and after school. Smoking a cigarette just became closely connected to satisfying his social needs. In the future, he will be able to connect more easily to other smokers. If he is able to find a stable friend group through this, which gives him a new and healthy way of feeling connected to others, he might be able to stop one day. This pretty much depends on how his friend group develops. You can probably imagine that some of his friends might have made the same experience as him and stuck with smoking, and others who grew up in an environment which was able to provide a feeling of connection, who did not develop a decade-long habit out of trying it back then. In most cases, this is not as specific as connecting over cigarettes. To stick with the smoking example, it will also just have a rewarding effect on you, which will automatically lower the urges of your unsatisfied needs. The same goes for any sort of overstimulation. But there's a new, huge problem developing nowadays. Back in the day, there was not much availability of unhealthy ways of satisfying your needs in general, but especially in childhood. But now, with the growing availability of extreme stimulants like digital media, sugar, and every other form of stimulation, people at a very young age, instead of learning the proper natural ways of satisfying their needs, find themselves depending on these new forms of extreme stimulation to get rid of any sort of motivating urge. Motivating urges being how needs show themselves. Back in the day, most urges needed to be picked up by the social environment, through which the children learned by getting social feedback, and other ways of acting them out were rare. Yes, there was television, but this is hardly comparable to digital media nowadays. Back when there was boredom, there was room to develop functional ways of acting on your needs. Nowadays, you can easily imagine children who just experienced this overstimulation very early on, and we cannot yet predict what this can do to them long term. So yeah, I accidentally talked about something negative again. The next video will focus on what is needed to be happy, to not always talk about what you shouldn't be doing.